Everyone, welcome to episode number 27 of Social Good Podcast. Today we have with us Louise Prashad. She's the director of the Second Chance Project in the UK. Thank you so much for joining us today, Louise.
Thank you, Rose. Thanks for having me today.
Great. As I take it, you've had a bit going on this week. It's been your birthday. Your anniversary is coming up. How are you holding up over there in the UK?
Yeah, we've just had a heat wave, so the British are not used to this weather, so we are slowly melting, but it seems to be a bit cooler this week. So we've had great birthday celebrations, my anniversary tomorrow, then my husband's birthday next week. So it's definitely all systems go.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a summer. What's the temperature like anyhow?
Well, last week it got up to like 33, 34, which to everybody else in the world probably isn't very hot, but as British people, we like to complain about the weather a lot. So that is
Okay.
very, very hot for us.
Got you, got you. Yeah, and like have you lived in York, UK all your life, or whereabouts did you grow up?
So I've always lived in Yorkshire, so I've got a very strong Yorkshire accent. But I started life in West Yorkshire and then moved across to North Yorkshire, in particularly York, around 10 years ago. So my children have always lived in York and they know that is their hometown.
Great. That's wonderful. I've been in mainly London just for like a few days earlier this year. It was so lovely. I would really like to come back and visit another time.
I know London is wonderful, Rose, but ever so busy. If you come up to Yorkshire, you'll get a lot more farms and fields and a lot more greenery. I'd love to invite you over one day.
Um, yeah. So tell us a little bit about like your background and how you got into what you do with the Second Chance Project.
So my story kind of starts in tragedy. I was 21 years old when my journey began into kind of advocacy in the Second Chance Project. I was 37 weeks pregnant with twins and I was experiencing really worrying symptoms. So I went to the hospital and it transpired that I was suffering with a condition called acute fatty liver of pregnancy, which affects about 1 in 10,000 women and eventually led to me being induced into a coma. I then, my son and daughter were stillborn at full term, and I woke up a month later out of the coma to realize I no longer had my son and daughter and that I had undergone a liver transplant. So, in the time I'd been in hospital, I'd experienced multi-organ failure due to this condition. And I woke up and realized that my life had changed forever.
I see. What year was this, Louise? And
So this was in 2016, and it was the worst year of my life. I never thought I'd become a mother again. I never thought I'd have the ability to walk or write or be myself again because I suffered with a lot of brain damage. So when I was lying in that hospital bed, I had to try and imagine what life was going to be like afterwards. And it took all I had in me to try and see that light. But knowing that somebody had made the decision that evening to say goodbye to their loved one and donate their organs was the kind of light that kept me going. I was no longer just living for myself, I was living for me and my donor's family. So I have spent the last 10 years trying to rebuild my life, and through that, the Second Chance Project was born.
did you start the Second Chance Project?
So I began after I started my kind of recovery phase. I spent a very,
Yes.
very long time trying to get out of a deep depression. I just lost my son and daughter, and I was living as a 21-year-old, immunosuppressed, and with my whole life changed, I was still quite poorly. And I had to try and find some light, like I said. So I started doing talks about organ donation. So it began really, really small, the Second Chance project, and I approached schools and local communities, universities, and I went and just told my story. I told my story about losing the twins, about my second chance, and organ donation and how important
Yes.
it is to be an organ donor. And that kind of spiraled. The more people who heard me speak, the more invitations I received. So then I received invitations to go into hospitals and talk to aspiring doctors and nurses about my experiences. I've been invited on Sky News and Parliament to talk about organ donation and baby loss awareness. So the Second Chance project just naturally grew, and that's what it is. It's the Second Chance project is kind of my advocacy of spreading the word about organ donation. And I've done over 700 talks now, which is absolutely incredible when I think about it. But now I'm reaching out to others to try and get the message out there and get more speakers on board. And another part of the Second Chance project is getting people active. Through my advocacy, I've completed 320 races in the name of organ donation and raised over £350,000. So you can see all my medals behind me here. So it's all about using activity and your voice to spread the word about organ donation, because you can save so many lives.
Wow, that's just amazing to hear. I don't think ever talked to an organ
A
recipient.
recipient.
Yeah, like how did you come about being an organ recipient when you had difficulties like during your first labor?
Yes, so I woke up out of a coma to the knowledge that I'd had a liver transplant. I never knew I was going to have it. Many people are prepared for years and on a waiting list for a transplant. I only had 8 hours to live. My family were told that if they didn't find an organ in 8 hours, I wouldn't be here. So at that same time, there was a lady down near London who was out horse riding, and she suffered a brain aneurysm and she was taken to hospital. And she was pronounced brain dead on arrival, and her family were asked if she was an organ donor, and they said yes. And her liver was a perfect match for me. So that organ was taken from Devon, flown to Leeds, where I was at the time, and I was transplanted. It was a complete miracle that it was the right, it was the right kind of size, it was the right shape, that we were the same blood type. So everything had to fall into place for me to get this transplant. And when it arrived, it had to be viable. So some organs arrive and they're not viable for transplantation. So everything had to align for me to still be talking to you today, Rose. And it's a miracle it did. And I actually got the opportunity to meet her family this year. So my donor was called Sarah, and I had the opportunity to go and meet her son and grandchildren this year. And it was such an incredible experience. It was like having another family.
Uh, so it was the liver that you are the recipient of.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but she also
Um,
donated to another 7 people. So there's 8 people alive today because her family said yes to organ donation.
great, great. Um, yeah, I can't even imagine what that was like, emotionally, let alone like just with the paperwork and the process. So what was that to experience that?
For me,
Like for
it was easy because I was asleep. I was in a coma. I had no idea what was going on. But for my family, it was the most devastating night of their lives. We were all expecting me to go into labour and bring home these beautiful babies, but instead, my husband and dad were taken into a room and told that I might not survive the night, and they had to make a decision on my behalf of whether to wait to see if I improved, which it was unlikely, or put me on the super urgent transplant list. So I went to number 1 on the super urgent transplant list, which means the next available organ was mine because I was so gravely ill. But that call might not have come, and I might not be speaking to you today, but My son and daughter were born just after midnight, and my family got a chance to spend some time with them, even though they weren't here anymore. And I'm so grateful that they got that time together because they will always feel loved. And I did get the opportunity to meet my son and daughter in the Chapel of Rest later on. And I'm so glad I did so because I got to say hello and goodbye. It was a really heartbreaking time, Rose, and I don't think as a family we will ever get over it, or we've survived it, but the grief is still there every day. But we're just so thankful that I was given the gift of life and I still get to continue and fundraise and advocate in Mia and Leo's name.
What like is it what's like one of the things from your experience that has, like equipped you as, as like someone who works on the Second Chance project?
I think out of the whole experience, I've learned to be really resilient. I have
Mm,
gone through the worst thing that could ever happen to me, I think. Um, I nearly died and I lost two children, but I've learned to be really resilient and build and try and find the light in the darkest of times. I know that
mm,
sounds really cliche, but it's so important to me to keep going and to do things that push me out my comfort zone. And I really, really want to live life because my donor doesn't get to live her life anymore. My children don't get to live their lives anymore. But I've gone on to marry the love of my life, to graduate, to have two more children, and be the recipient of so many incredible awards. And I've met so many wonderful women, especially through women of the future. And I now feel a responsibility to live my life to the fullest because they can't. So I think out of this whole tragedy, I've learned to rebuild and the power of resilience.
that is that's a really astounding story. I really hope that many people can go on to tell that story as well. Um, yeah, and like just it's really great that you're, doing something active on behalf of your own encounter and your own story and advocating for organ donation and such. Um, can you tell me a little bit about like your work with the with your nonprofit?
Yes, of course. So primarily, like I mentioned, it's organ donation talks. So we go into
Mm-hmm.
schools and universities and medical establishments to literally talk about the power of organ donation. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't know that in the UK that your family have the final say when it comes to organ donation.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Rose, even if you were an organ donor in life in the UK, your family can veto your decision in death.
Hmm.
So we go out and have those really difficult conversations and make
Mm-hmm.
people think about their choices and go home and have that chat before it gets to the point where their family don't know the decision and their wishes aren't fulfilled after death. A massively important part of the Second Chance project is creating those conversations, and like I said, we do that through talking workshops, but also a massive part of it is getting people active after transplant. So I wouldn't be here today without sport. Sport saved my life. I had my transplant and the grief was so immense that talking therapy did nothing for me. So I decided that I was going to go for a walk one day to try and clear my head. And I got to the end of the street and gave up, but I felt something. I felt a shift in my energy and I didn't feel as sad anymore. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I can go for a run. So I started really small and then ended up after 3 months doing a 10K and raising enough money to give a sizable donation to Tommy's and the British Liver Trust. And I just got the running bug from there. So, like I said, I've done over 320 races now, and I completed a 50-kilometre race last week. And
Wow.
I'll be competing in the British Transplant Games this weekend. So, a massive part of the Second Chance project is also giving back to transplant athletes. So, any money that we raise through the project goes back in grant funding to help people access competition and sport.
So tell me a little bit about the transplant games. Like, is it exclusively for, organ recipients? I'm sorry, am I organ donor recipients? Would that be the correct term?
Yes, Rose. So I could talk all day about the British Transplant Games because it feels so homely to me. So I was first introduced to it through my transplant coordinator at the hospital, and it's a yearly competition that takes part in different parts of the UK. This year it's in Sheffield, and it's thousands of people who have had a solid organ transplant or bone marrow coming together to take part in a weekend of sport. So
Hmm.
it can get quite competitive, but it's really inclusive as well. So we have
Okay.
everything from kind of bowling and darts all the way up to like major league athletics. So I take part in discus, javelin, shot put, and long jump. Even though I'm a runner, I like to throw at the games, and it's something I challenged myself with a couple of years ago, and just found that I love to throw. So this year there's over 1,500 athletes competing, which is the biggest transplant games yet. And we also have the donor families attend. So the donor families are people who have lost loved ones and have donated their organs. So they get the opportunity to come and volunteer and support transplant recipients. But it's really amazing, the age ranges. So last year we had someone as young as 3 who had had a transplant and someone who was in their 90s competing. So it's literally all ages. And when you go there, you can just feel the love. Everybody has their own story, some incredible stories, but we've all been through something very similar, and that's an organ transplant. So the Games is just a showcase of what can be achieved if you say yes to organ donation and give somebody a second chance. And you have the opportunity to then qualify for Team GB at the World Transplant Games. So I competed in Dresden last year and came away with 3 silvers and 12 British golds. So
Congratulations.
I'm very, very excited to see where this journey takes me next.
Great. So I mean that's the British Transplant Games. How about the World Transplant Games? Like when does that take place? Have you participated in it? Um,
Yes, so we have the British, the Europeans, and the Worlds. So the
okay.
British I've taken part in 4 times now. The Europeans I've just come back from in Leuven, but it was cancelled due to the heat. So I went
Yeah.
out to compete and it was 41 degrees on the track that day, which is
Oh,
hot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it got cancelled, which was a real
Okay.
shame. But we have the World Games as well. So I went out to Dresden last year and competed, and it was an incredible experience. There was people from all over the world competing, from
Mhm.
South Africa, China, Spain, Turkey, every country you can imagine was represented there. And we all came together for a week of sport. And it's more than a sporting event, it's making friendships. And like I said, you all have that understanding that you've been through something life changing. And it's just beautiful to see people who have been through this kind of medical miracle coming together to celebrate life through sport.
I mean, I understand just a little bit, enough to like understand like the camaraderie that goes on because as someone that grew up in Houston, Texas in America, I volunteered I think for 2 summers in a Christian camp for disabled children in Missouri, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Uh was it Kansas? Might have, yeah, one of those states. And it was basically a bunch of like physically disabled people that came and just like really supported one another. So I kind of understand like the type of camaraderie that goes on. And I'm just so glad to see that organ tran organ donor transplants have the opportunity as well. And this is something that's of a much bigger scale. So, um, yeah, just like going off of that, like you're also with the Special Olympics. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so that's my day job. Obviously, still in disability sport, but we
Mm-hmm.
support people with intellectual disability find sporting opportunity and life opportunity. We have over 6,000 athletes in the UK. and I work as part of the corporate partnerships team, helping to find corporate partners that can help fund their games. So the Special Olympics have their own games, which takes place every year. So they have kind of a British Games, a Winter Games, and then a World Games that the athletes can qualify for. So everybody who takes part has a varying level of intellectual disability. So an incredible organisation that presents so many opportunities to the athletes that they support.
And what are some of like the the ranges of like disabilities for people for participants for this Special Olympics?
Yeah, it's a huge range of varying levels. So some of our athletes, you wouldn't even think that they had an intellectual disability to speak to them. So it ranges from everything from like kind of autism all the way through to Down syndrome. So varying levels of intellectual disability. Some are non-verbal, some can compete and not have any kind of extra special requirements. But they think the beautiful thing is that everybody comes together and it doesn't matter about the level of intellectual disability. They all come together and they're celebrated through sport, and they're given incredible opportunities outside of the sporting world as well. Like we have workshops with our corporate partners about how to CV write. We recently created some products with them in collaboration with another one of our corporate partners. So we're also giving them skills for real life as well, because over 90% of our athletes with intellectual disability are out of work, which is a really worrying statistic. So the Special Olympics is a movement. It's not just creating those sporting opportunities, it's also creating life skills and opportunities to partner with some of our corporate partners to really create those workplace skills.
What are some of like the more like, severe um disability intellectual disabilities that people have when they come on the Special Olympics? More
Like I said, it is really varying. We have over 6,000 athletes in the UK, and they're all connected to their own clubs. So it does range from autism to Down syndrome, and it's everything in between. There's so many types of intellectual disability in the UK, but we have a competition pathway which helps get everybody into some kind of sport. So we're all inclusive. So if somebody isn't able to use their motor skills, they could do a sport that is more representative of them. We have every sport you could imagine: bocce, football, tennis, paddle, gymnastics. We have something for everybody.
This is once a year, or like how often does it take place? Because really, like, once a year isn't quite enough for the amount of joy that it brings, I
So
think.
that is literally just the competition. So the National Summer Games is when everybody comes together to kind of celebrate the year and take part in the competitions. But we have activations all year round. So the actual individual clubs, they have weekly training sessions, getting ready for competitions. Or some people just don't want to compete in competitions and they just go to the training sessions to make friends and have that camaraderie and be physically active. So week in, week out around the country, people are going to Special Olympics clubs all around the country, all the way from Scotland, all the way down to kind of London and beyond. They come together and enjoy a couple of hours of sport together. So it's not just the competition pathway that we have. We also have weekly sessions that help people stay active.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, the Special Olympics is not only in Great Britain, but also in like other countries as well, or is it just Great Britain and the US?
There's lots of Special Olympics around the
Okay.
world, Rose, you're correct, yeah. But I think the main movement and how people know it is the US Special Olympics, because they are just a huge organization and they've got so many states under them. So each state will have a Special Olympics club, and
Right,
then you have the umbrella SOGB.
right. If I'm not mistaken, I think that uh um the former Governor Schwarzenegger's wife, Maria Shriver, was one of the founders of the Special Olympics. Isn't that
Yeah,
right?
that's correct. Yeah, they were the
Yeah.
founding family, yes. Yeah,
Wow. Okay,
and
so
the
it's
family's still very much involved.
amazing, amazing. I think my daughter actually attended my alma mater. So that's how I kind of like know a little bit about about the happenings there. But
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah. So like I do you guys partner with like big brother, big sister at all or
No, we don't, I'm afraid, not in the UK. We're not as big as the US. We only have 18 members of staff looking after kind of 6,000 athletes. So the boots are very thin on the ground, but we do the best we can. And everybody who works at Special Olympics is super passionate. So we try and reach as many athletes as we can, but
uh
it's not always possible, but that's where corporate partners come in. They really help elevate the charity and the movement and help us reach more people and get the movement out there.
yeah, how do you guys like handle like transportation and all that anyway? Because if people are traveling from like across Europe for the transplant games and like across Great Britain for the Special Olympics, like are there like volunteer drivers or I mean, how does that work?
So for Special Olympics, it's when we have the National Summer Games, it's only people in the UK that can take part. So they're kind of all responsible for getting themselves there. But the clubs fundraise to be able to put on coaches and things like that. With the British Transplant Games, people just make the journey. They're so excited to be there. And it's usually somewhere in the middle of England where everybody can kind of get to within a couple of hours. So a lot of our charities will help us fundraise for transport. So with the British Transplant Games, each hospital has their own team. So I'm under Leeds Adults because I was transplanted in Leeds. If you were transplanted in Birmingham, you'd be part of Birmingham Adults. So each team fundraises for hotel and accommodation costs and travel. We're very lucky that we've got Leeds Hospitals charity that support us, and they are paying for all our accommodation this year, which is incredible because many transplant patients and people with intellectual disability are out of work. So having these kind of charities supporting us gives us access to sport. We wouldn't be able to access sport without the incredible charities that do support us.
Sometimes I feel like even like a yearly thing, like as small and like infrequent as that sounds, it's all you need that like one special spark to like, just like light up a fire inside of someone's mind and heart to be like, oh, there's other people like me and other people who are undergoing a similar experience as me, and I'm not so alone. I think that's kind of like all it takes, right? So I am really, really happy and like really glad to hear about the Special Olympics and the Second Chance project.
Thanks, Rose. Yeah, it's so important that people have a place to feel
Yeah.
themselves. And like I said, I don't think I'd have survived my grief without sport and the transplant games. I've met some of my best friends there, and
Yeah.
it's just given me an opportunity well, it's opened up so many doors for me and given me that real opportunity to see some light out of the darkness that I experienced.
Yeah, I mean it's like that quote that says like we rise to the level of we rise to the level of others that are set for them, so there's no need to shrink yourself, right? So
But
yeah,
no, I've
like
got some really exciting challenges coming up
mhm.
as well. So
Okay, I'd love to
on
hear about it.
the 31st of August, I'm actually setting off on an amazing challenge. So I'm running from Birmingham to Devon. So that is
Oh my
200
gosh.
miles, which
Oh,
I'm not quite
mhm.
feeling ready for, but I've got
Okay.
an
Okay.
incredible sponsor. So ASICS are sponsoring me on this
Oh
journey. So I'm
wow.
going to be starting at the Alexandra Stadium on the 31st of August. I'm making my way over a week to Devon, where my Jonah family live. So I'm going to be finishing in their hometown, and they don't know about it yet. So they'll probably hear about it when this podcast comes out. Along the way, I'm going to be stopping and giving talks about organ donation and handing out organ donor cards along the way to spark those conversations, which is exactly what the Second Chance project is about. Yeah, wish me luck, Rose, because I don't know how I'm going to get 200 miles down the country.
Are you running solo or do you have like a team like trailing behind
So
you?
this is super sweet, but I am running solo, but the kids and my husband are following in a camper van.
Okay, there you
So we're
go.
going to be on the road together for a week. Well, I'll be on my feet, but they'll be in the camper van. So we're going to kind of stop ever so often to refuel and get lots of kisses and cuddles from the kids to motivate me.
Oh,
But I think when I finish in Devon, I'm going to be meeting three more of my donors' children who I haven't met before, and lots more grandchildren. So it's going to be such an incredible moment. And it really reflects the journey that my organ took and how grateful I am to have this second chance of life. And I'm hoping that comes out through the mission. But I'm also hoping to raise £10,000 in the process to fundraise for the Leeds Hospitals charity because, like I said, they do so much for us, providing accommodation and transplant and access to sport. So, yeah, wish me luck. ASICS have been an absolutely incredible sponsor so far, and
best
yeah,
best of luck to
hope it
you.
goes well.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you training for it?
So I've just completed a 50-kilometer race last week. So I did Race to the Stones, which was 33 miles non-stop, which was a really good training run in preparation. I'm going to be covering about 25 miles a day for a week. So it's going to be really, really physically demanding on my body. And obviously, as a transplant recipient, I'm on a lot of medication. So I have a team helping me navigate what that's going to be like and a physio. So hopefully, I've got all the medical support I need. But I think when times get tough, I'm just going to think of my twins and my donor and how grateful I am to be here, Rose.
Like, um, yeah, I can definitely see how like you're so driven to, like you're so driven towards a goal and to make all of those people proud, right? Um, yeah, like, and it seems like even if it seems like it may seem non-significant to some people, like running like X amount of miles, um, what does that do for you, as a person? Like, how does it lift your confidence? Like, does it give you a little more oomph to you know, do your work or yeah, I'd love to hear about that, your point of view on that.
Yeah, so I think running has totally changed the way I see the world and it really improves my mental health. So I've always struggled since I was a
Mm.
child with mental health, just having really high highs and really low lows. And I was recently diagnosed as an adult with ADHD 2 weeks ago. So that explains a lot, but running gives me the opportunity to escape everyday life
Okay.
and just have an hour on the trails, just enjoying the scenery and switching off. Because I very, very rarely in my job and in my role in the Second Chance Project and as a mum get a chance to switch off. And that is an opportunity to pound the pavement, get all the emotions out I'm feeling, and come back as a better mum, a better colleague, and a better wife. It just gives me that escape. And yeah, it may seem insignificant me taking on this challenge to some people, but I'm also doing it because it does help to spread awareness and the profile of organ donation. It
Yeah.
I'm going to meet so many people along the way that I can tell my story to and the story of organ donation. And it makes such a difference. Like I said, I've raised over £350,000 just through running events. And if I hadn't have started running that day, that money wouldn't have gone to the incredible charities it has. So I think running truly has been a savior for me. It's helped my mental health, it's helped me to fundraise, and it's also helped me to be, I think, a better person.
I've always been like a slowish runner, but I've never like really quite put in the distance. So I'm looking for a place in Seoul specifically where I can, pick that up as well. I think there's like a river that runs across um the middle of Seoul, like the middle like the middle of the longitude that spans Seoul, right? There's a river called the Han where I think I can maybe do a little bit of distance and maybe I can start doing that myself.
No, definitely, Rose. I think it's not for everybody. Like my husband,
Mm.
hates running. Like I've tried to get him into it, he's just not into it. It's not for everybody. And everybody has their own thing which they love. It might be art, it might be,
Mhm.
hiking. But for me, it's running. And if you can get into it and switch your mind off, it can be so
Exactly.
therapeutic and
Yeah.
so good for the mind, body, and soul.
Yeah. And so do you mind sharing with the audience like your is there a link that you can leave with us for us to donate towards the
Yes, of course.
your
Yeah, so I'm
scholarship?
on a platform called GiveStar, who are actually also a sponsor of mine. So you can go on the GiveStar website, which is also like Just Giving. So it's a donation platform. And if you search for the Second Chance Project, or Louise Prashad, then you can find my LinkedIn. But I'll also send you a link, Rose, if you want to put it out with the
Perfect.
podcast. But no, thank you so much for having me on and speaking about organ donation and helping spread that awareness. It's thanks to people like you, Rose, that we get the platform we do.
Thank you so much for joining us, Louise. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, Rose.